The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks and Apex Entertainment.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast, the award-winning Orange Zone podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. We have Rachel Culver on the producer mic. No James Mongrove today because we did have to record on a Monday. That's what worked better for the group, but he will be back again next week. We are coming to you after Syracuse pulled out a 44-41 win in overtime over number 25 UNLV on the road. How are we feeling?
First of all, 44 points. I'd like to point out the obvious. Syracuse's magic number. We love to see that. We said coming into this game that this could be a shootout. I don't think any of us had score predictions as high as 44-41. It surely was a shootout. It was down to the wire, overtime, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas. Kind of a Syracuse road classic in recent memory.
I agree. Rachel's nails are essentially not nails anymore after watching that game.
I did fix them. Like the next day, but yeah, they've been better.
Great. So the nails have seen better days, but Syracuse is doing pretty well. Yes, to your point, right? It's a second-ranked win of this season. It's also the first time since 2001 that a Syracuse team has defeated multiple ranked teams in the regular season. Additionally, I think this is an interesting stat. First road win over a top 25 team since the 2010 team bested number 20, West Virginia. Like 2010 is a long time ago. It's 2024 now.
A long time ago.
That's a big stat.
Yeah. It was great to see them come away with the win, the big moment at the end, fourth quarter, to push it into overtime and then to win in overtime on the road. Certainly looked like there was a ton of Syracuse fans there. Looked like a lot of orange in that crowd, which we love to see, those who made the trip. It was a game that you're happy you came out with the win, right? I'm going to take that every day of the week. There's a huge difference between being 4-1 and 3-2. I think that's actually, in terms of a team's morale, that's kind of a very, very big gap there. At the same time, and we'll get into all this, you'd kind of like to see them put together 4 full quarters of football, and I don't think that's something they've done in any game yet this season.
Because it does still feel like the Syracuse team at their best version this year is not something we've seen yet. I think there is still room to grow based on the raw talent that this team has to offer with Kyle McCord, with all the weapons around. However, I will say this felt like a lengthy game. It was obviously a game that went beyond 4 quarters. And Coach Fran Brown said in his press conference today that actually most of the people in his staff wanted to go for 2 and just try and end the game there. And I was wondering about that. I was thinking, like, are they going to try that? Are they not? And the way that he describes it is he said that he kind of looked around at everyone on the team, and Coach Brown felt in his head that UNLV doesn't practice the way we practice. And if we try and go into overtime against them and we have Kyle McCord, he said there's always a chance we can win a game if we have Kyle McCord. As a coach, that has to be an electric feeling to know that you really feel and believe like you have a chance in any game because your quarterback is that good.
Yeah, honestly, I like the decision to take your chances in overtime. I think exactly what he said, right? You have Kyle McCord. You know you have a chance on offense at all times. Why not take that extra chance? You got to give all credit to where credit is due. I mean, LeQuint Allen, this guy was hobbling off the field, and he was not going to give up on his team. He fought until the very, very end. But yeah, like I said, it kind of feels like I think the 4 quarters of football thing describes it. You see the flashes of their full potential. You see a fantastic 15 minutes, a fantastic quarter, and then it's like that second quarter, they kind of get slow again. I don't know if that's a thing, and I said this to you the day after, I think they probably come out with a pretty set game plan, and then it's a matter of the in-game adjustments, so what you didn't anticipate, what's not on the whiteboard. So maybe that stuff needs to get cleaned up. I just feel like they're on the ropes still, more than they should be on the ropes with Kyle McCord, if that makes sense.
I feel like that's what you felt in Holy Cross, which is why you changed your prediction to saying they would lose against UNLV. That's, you got to admit, that's a killer.
Listen, my predictions, folks, if you listen to this podcast every week, they're smoked. It's over for the year. I said lose to Georgia Tech, and I switched to say lose to UNLV. And now, because I used my mulligan, I'm locked into a lose to NC State, which I didn't want. So it's all over for me this season. Thanks. Maybe I can still get the 9-3 overall record, but the game by game is cooked. We'll see you tomorrow night.
That's so funny. No, we'll start with the offense because there really was a lot of great things there. Yeah. And we have to talk about LeQuint Allen. This is a guy who ran 19 times for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns, also caught a career best 9 passes for 58 yards and 2 scores. he had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Including the game winner. And I'll just go right to the very end. Like, what stuck out to me, I think what stuck out to a lot of other people, is this play to win the game. When you're watching that in real time, if any of our listeners did watch that in real time, like, I thought, okay, he's driving, he's pushing, but there's no way he's making it into the end zone on this play. Surely they'll still win this game, but it's not going to happen now. And then you watch it in slow-mo on the replay. I'm like, if that doesn't spell out hustle, I don't know what does. Rachel, you watched it live too, right?
Yeah. It was just it was gritty. Like, it was just every time, like, he was covered pretty well in that push into the end zone, and like he just barreled through every touch, and he was getting to the end zone no matter what. So that was kind of electric to watch. I mean, in my old age, like, that was a late finish for me. Like, I was up and I was tired, but it was worth staying up for that.
Yeah.
I had a rare, because I actually was not at work, at the bar experience for this, which never occurs because of our job. And I mean, downtown Syracuse was electrified by this win. That's all I have to tell you.
And that play, I mean, it did. It was hustle. It was heart. And yeah, Coach Brown obviously spoke a little bit about that today. And it is clear to me that he has complete and total belief in not only LeQuint Allen, but also in Kyle McCord, who, again, this game, 40 of 63 passes for 355 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. So again, with these over 300 yards passing, like, this dude is insane. Like, sometimes I'm honestly reading the numbers, not that the numbers are everything, but I'm like, these are numbers you would see in a video game. Like, this is not real life.
Kyle McCord, so here's a stat for you. Syracuse has never had a quarterback go 4 straight games in a row with 300-plus passing yards. Now they've just had Kyle McCord go 5. He just blew past the record books. Yeah, he's been fantastic. I mean, I think anytime you're throwing the ball, 63 times, like, that's an insane number. And LeQuint Allen, I mean, all credit where credit is due. We've been saying it for weeks that we wanted to see them get that ground game back up, see LeQuint have a huge game, and he had a huge, huge game. But we saw him, this is where I have a question for you, because you were at Fran Brown's press conference this morning, hobbling. He rated his pain on his leg an 8 out of 10. After the game, did he answer a LeQuint injury question?
There were some people who were sort of flirting with that idea, trying to ask, what we saw that he was kind of battling it out at the end. From what I was able to hear, and mind you, there was a lot of construction going on today. If you know, that honestly is an issue at the press conferences, especially if you're in the back row with the camera. But from what I understood, he did not give away anything breaking. Okay. So I think at this point, again, it is partially about his recovery. Like, he was actually, Coach Brown was actually giving some credit to the strength and conditioning staff and even like the athletic training staff on the road.
Sure.
Like, he was like, the fact that everyone was able to hold up for 4 quarters plus was a big deal for us. Like, we were able to kind of see that experience play out on the road. So yeah, short answer, nothing that was breaking. I haven't heard that he's going to be out. But then again, honestly, Coach Brown doesn't always give away, as you know, like the injury updates. If he has something positive to say, I think he says it. For example, he did say today that Marcellus Barnes Jr. is back and ready to go, which is big.
Yeah.
He also said that Justus Ross-Simmons is back as well.
Yeah.
But if it's something where he's not sure, then I think sometimes he kind of keeps those cards close to the vest, because he doesn't want, like, those press conferences, I'm sure many of you guys who listen know this, like, those press conferences are public. They do go up on YouTube. Yeah. We play stuff from them. Maybe he doesn't want NC State to know everything, but I think it's fine.
And they do have an extra day this week, right? I know the travel, but I believe they left Vegas late on Friday night. Like, they got home, so they have an 8-day week this week. And he also didn't mention anything before everybody asks on Zede Haynes, which continues to be a family issue. I think we're going into his 4th week away from the team, so seems concerning. Hopefully we see Zede back. We're not sure.
Yep, we will definitely see about that. One other positive thing I wanted to point out was Aronde Gatson, who finished with a career-high 10 receptions and 142 yards. This was also coming off of a not so overwhelming performance against Holy Cross. So it was nice to see those cylinders operating.
Yeah, they did what we have been asking for weeks. I said the run game, and then get Aronde Gatson more involved, and all credit where credit is due to offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. He found a way, even when we've been talking about it all year. Aronde Gatson is going to be double-teamed, triple-teamed. Got to find a way to get him in this offense, even if, he wasn't scoring the touchdowns, right? Like, LeQuint had it, but he was getting those big catches for in times that mattered, which we saw right at the end as well.
In the times that mattered, you're right. right. The one at the end, that's even something Coach Brown said. He's like, I feel like people are forgetting about some of the catches that really made a difference here, courtesy of Gadsden. And also just to, again, state the obvious, like, yes, a lot of the little things are cleaned up, but I feel like if Mungro was here, he would be saying, like, they won on the road. I mean, they won. Like, this is a team that they were not necessarily predicted to win against. This was an undefeated team. This was a ranked opponent. They won.
Yes.
Now that we've said all of that, let's get into special teams and a little bit of defense.
They have a special teams emergency. Like, it is a 5-alarm fire. The special teams for a Power 5 football team is atrociously bad, and it is going to cost them a game at some point if they do not clean it up and clean it up in a hurry. It almost cost them this game, but they escaped.
There are a few games where it has come down to the wire, and special teams was a part of why it could have went one way or another. In this particular game, there was 14 points given away through special teams mistakes. In the first half, Stonehouse took a sack inside the 10-yard line, and the Rebels score a touchdown very shortly after that. In the second half, his punt is blocked. The ball rolls into the end zone, and UNLV essentially jumps on top of it, ties the game up. I'm also just going to state something that I don't think is breaking news. I think this is obvious, but worth pointing out. I don't really think that much of this falls on Jack Stonehouse at all.
Or any of it, yeah.
That's where I was going with this as well, because first of all, you give away 14 points for special teams mistakes. You don't need overtime if you didn't give away those 14 points. So that's what keeps putting them in these on-the-rope situations. Second of all, like you said, Jack Stonehouse, the same way Kyle McCord and LeQuint Allen need to be protected by their line, Jack Stonehouse needs to be protected by his line, and he's not, because we've seen this. This is not the first game that we've seen this become a major problem.
The dude needs time to be able to kick the damn ball. Or else, what is it that we're doing here?
Kick the damn ball.
Kick the damn ball. Because,
damn
but
ball,
honestly, but I was thinking in my head, like, obviously, I am not Jack Stonehouse. I don't know exactly what goes into the timing of making those decisions. But I sort of actually felt like what happened in the first half when he kind of just runs and you realize it's going to be a mess. But I was sort of thinking, like, maybe he actually did make the smart move if he felt like if he knew that he was going to kick it and it was going to get blocked and it could have been an immediate touchdown. The result ends up being a touchdown either way. But I'm sure he knew in his head after you kick that many times that he's not going to be able to get the ball off.
No, that was a smart play because we saw what happens when you do the alternative and try and kick it anyways later in the game. So, like, he gave his defense a chance to make a stop.
Yeah.
After that, you know?
The punting unit has a problem, but I don't really think much of it is on Jack Stonehouse, like you said. The kicking, we kind of saw Brady Denenberg lose his job in this game. It appears it was Jaden O. He kicked every extra point. He kicked a field goal that was good. He checked out, so we'll see if that continues. I know Fran Brown said going into the week that had become an open competition, and it appears that Jaden O won. So I'm not sure where we'll see Brady Denenberg again.
And listen, I'm going to say this. I feel like everything is an open competition, and I kind of love that. Like today, he said, when he said that Barnes is back, and obviously everyone's excited, anticipating him being back, him being a big component of this team. And Coach Brown was like, yep, he's back, and, hopefully this week he'll be able to beat out his competition and get back on the field.
He's like, he was just hurt. He's running a sprint.
No, literally. Like, it's like, he's like, all right, he's going to start back. He's going to be back in the competition, and we'll see what happens this week.
Yeah.
I love that mentality because now you have all these guys. I mean, obviously, listen, is Kyle McCord in a competition for, no.
Yeah, right.
But, like, I like the fact that most of these guys, especially if you're coming back from something, hey, you're going to work hard. You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to get back on the field again.
Yeah, and we've seen Jaden Bellamy do some great things in his absence. He left for a minute in the UNLV game due to injury, but he appears to be fine. But Marcellus Barnes definitely a guy they can use in that DB corner room.
I am sure he will earn his spot, and I am sure that he will be back. As far as the defense, Rachel kind of has it here. Average defense, and you put down, which I agree with. I think one of the big points here is the missed tackles. That this is not news to anybody, but it is news that it continues now to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like you just said, it's just missed tackle after missed tackle. The defense just hasn't really seemed to be on the same page. I hesitate to say in any game, same thing. Like, there's been flashes, there's been quarters, they looked good. There's been big holds, big stops on third down, fourth down in the red zone. But as far as playing a complete defensive unit game, I don't think we've seen it. I really don't.
Rachel, what do you think?
With the tackles especially, what I struggle with is, like, it's not like they're not getting chances to tackle. Like, there's contact. But, like, after the contact, they just find a way to get out of it. Like, they're not making the impact they need to get these guys on the ground. And it's just, that's something that, like, I feel like it's not a rarity to see, because there's obviously defenses that struggle no matter the level. But at this level, and when you see the offense that this team is putting out right now, like, I just can't wrap my head around it. Like, there just needs to be people brought to the ground.
And it is physicality, right? Which is what Fran Brown preaches every single week at every turn. But it is a physicality thing that needs to be improved.
It's toughness.
It's toughness. And they are missing Marlo Wax. I say it every week, but he seems to be getting closer and closer to that return if it stays on the same timeline. But at the same time, the Marlo Wax bit is like, you got to play with who you got. Like, this is who you got right now. And that stuff has to be improved, because it hasn't been very pretty. I think the stat here is, which is funny because red zone defense was really, really good through the first 2 or 3 games, but right now their red zone defense ranks tied for 112th in the country, allowing opponents to score 94% of the time. That is not good.
No, that is actually bad.
That is bad.
That's really just bad. You just say it. And in a way, it's like almost like a little bit heartbreaking, because I do feel like, and like, listen, end of the day, the Syracuse team is 4-1. Yeah. That's not heartbreaking. That's great.
No, right.
But I'm just saying, for as high powered as this offense is, if we can fix some of those things, if Syracuse can like start tackling better, you do wonder, like I think the ceiling is different if we're tackling people more.
And back to the Marlo thing, more than missing Marlo, it's also affected them in that you have guys playing out of position. Yes. Justin Barron's playing middle linebacker. Justin Barron's not a middle linebacker. They're relying really heavily on Fadil Diggs in kind of more of a linebacker-ish role, but also he needs to be that outside edge rusher. And Fran Brown said going into this game, he wrote on the whiteboard that if Kyle McCord and Fadil Diggs have big games, they will win this game. And they did, and that's what happened. But they're relying so heavily on Diggs, so heavily on Barron out of position, that it's like this defense just isn't really, you got guys in spots that they're not normally in.
Yeah, not to mention, this is me stating the obvious, but every missed tackle and then every first down that the other team gets is more time that the defense is on the field.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many great things that can come from them just cleaning this up, and we obviously don't know all the things that go on behind the scenes, but what I do know is that when there's a problem, especially when it's a recurrent problem, I know Fran Brown's on it, and he sees it.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Don't think Fran Brown doesn't know this. Like, I'm sure there's been the offense, we've seen what they can do, put up 44 points on the road. I know they barely escaped with the win, but don't think that he's not. Him and Elijah Robinson, I'm sure, are having some powwows about this defense.
No doubt about it. Powwows.
Like
that. All right, let's look ahead to NC State now. Syracuse 3-13 against NC State, their upcoming opponent. They most recently played back in 2022, which was a 24-9 win that I'm sure many of you remember inside the JMA Wireless Dome. Syracuse coming into this matchup, 2.5-point favorite. The initial over-under is set at 52.5 points. I like to say those things out loud because it helps me in my prediction. I also think some people might be surprised to see that now Syracuse is a favorite in this game, when coming into the year, NC State was a different team than what they've ultimately become.
Yeah, NC State, one of the biggest disappointments in the ACC this year, aside from probably Florida State. They were preseason ranked top 25, which I thought was kind of rich at the time. I didn't really agree with that fully.
You didn't buy into that?
I didn't buy into the NC State lore. But now they're 3-3. They lost to Wake Forest. They have a situation on their hands with Grayson McCall, their quarterback, who transferred from Coastal Carolina in the offseason. He took a very scary hit that the NC State head coach called probably the scariest moment of his coaching career. In that game against Wake Forest, he went to the hospital, he was stretchered off the field, and now he's in concussion protocol. I don't believe, as of this current time of this recording, which is Monday afternoon, that they've revealed whether or not he's going to play this week, but certainly a very scary hit. We are wishing for his recovery, and we will see. I think NC State's a much different team if Grayson McCall plays this week versus if he does not.
I agree. You wonder how all of that, of course, affects the spread. But, of course, as we all kind of know at this point, Coach Brown doesn't really buy into any of that. Yeah. He's like, we're going to play against who we're going to play against, and we need to figure out a way to win on the road. Rachel, what sticks out to you based on some of the players who you looked up today?
So I think the biggest player that stood out for me was tight end Justin Jolly. He's leading receiver with 20 catches for 313 yards and a touchdown. this year. I think it's interesting. I think there might be even a comparison there between the reliance that this team has with Justin Jolly versus Oronde Gadsden with Syracuse. So I think how we see this new quarterback that's kind of taking the reps now with the injury to McCall, how we see him and Justin Jolly work.
Jolie. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Just want to say it.
Jolie.
I got your back.
So it's how we see them perform together, I think, will be a big impact on how this game plays out.
Yeah, I also think it's worth pointing out, we were just talking about all of Syracuse's struggles on the defensive side of the ball. NC State has also struggled on the defensive side of the ball, which could be a good thing for a Syracuse offense that showed last week what they can do when LeQuint Allen is firing on all cylinders. Their run offense is currently ranked 14th in the ACC. Passing is ranked 13th in the conference. So I think this is a game that I'm pretty confident in. I think Syracuse will be able to put up a better offensive showing than NC State. But like we said, a lot of it also comes down to the Syracuse defense.
1,000%. Just a couple other names to be aware of. You have quarterback C.J. Bailey, who has completed 70 of 107 passes for 741 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also has 3 interceptions this season. You also have running back Kendrick Raphael, the Wolfpack's leading rusher. So that's somebody who you want to look out for. Sort of a shorter fellow, but very quick, very speedy. Watch some of his highlights before I came in here just to get the pronunciation right. Beyond that, I mean, listen, I think that in a way, obviously being on the road is a factor. But also, this is a team that is coming off of some tough, maybe unexpected losses. And Syracuse, I think after UNLV, you have to take into consideration, at least I do, momentum.
Yes.
Like momentum shifts. Them winning that game and then winning that game on the road, I think there was a lot that it proved to the Syracuse players and to each other. And it was actually asked today, what did you learn about your team, to Fran Brown? What did you learn, about your team on the road? And I really kind of like this answer. He was like, they love each other. Like, they just love each other. And this is a team that in the beginning of the year, we were definitely forcing to spend time together. Because I totally envision Coach Brown as like, we're going to do some forced bonding until it becomes real and you all like each other.
Yeah.
But now they really do. And he's like, now they do. And they hang out and they spend a lot of time with one another on their own. And he was essentially saying, and I agree with this, that it feels like you're playing for more when all of a sudden you're thinking about not only the guy next to you, but what his aspirations are, what his future goals are, what's on the line for all of your teammates. So I thought that was pretty impactful.
Yeah, I like that answer. That's definitely really, really interesting. I think, like you said, Syracuse has their mojo back, right? The Stanford thing was a brutal pill to swallow at home, tough. But like I said, the difference between that UNLV game and being 3-2 versus now being 4-1, you have 2 ranked wins, you have 1 on the road, is huge. And don't think Fran Brown isn't telling these guys, look, you're on the road against versus NC State. Then you get to come home, you have your second bye week. So there's that. You get a little break. That's nice. But then you're on the road back again to Pittsburgh. Like, that was a business trip they took to UNLV and took care of business. They got a few more business trips coming up. They're not coming back to the Dome until the first week of November. And we knew this going into the year, no home games in October, but it doesn't mean that it's not brutal on their bodies, on their sleep schedule, these guys go to class, like on the whole thing. Their lives are a little just upended for a few weeks. That's why I'm grateful, actually, that the bye week is in there after this NC State game, because that'll at least make them feel like they're spending some time in this town.
But I'm actually happy you brought that up, because I really do feel like people don't think about that enough. We probably don't even talk about it enough. But like, I would be curious, Mungro's perspective on it. It's like you forget that like this is not the only job that these guys have. This is not the NFL. They're literally full-time students.
Yeah.
They have work to do. They have to study. There's a lot of different factors. So yeah, going on the road a bunch of times, especially when it's in a row, I don't love it. But I'm also really interested and excited to see what they are able to do with some of those outside circumstances that they can't control.
And the second bye helps, right?
Yes, there is not one doubt about it. Anything that you guys would like to see in the NC State game that you haven't seen so far, and then we'll kind of move towards predictions.
I think we already said everything on the defense, but that's at the top of my mind for sure. The tackling, the physicality, all of that. I think offensively, we saw them get the run game a lot more involved, and that was great with LeQuint Allen, and we saw them get Oronde Gadsden more involved. I want to see Gadsden continue to grow, because it seemed like in game 2-3 he'd been a little shut down. And I want to see, I can't complain about the passing game. Kyle McCord's been doing great. Jackson Meeks had some big moments in that game as well, including right at the very end for a big catch. But Trevor Pena seems like he's been a little bit more shut down this week, because the league caught on after his first 2 or 3 performances. So yeah, I want to see want to see maybe a Pena touchdown would make me feel better about that. A Meeks, and I want to see them be able to show that versatility. Now we have seen LeQuint Allen have a big game. How do you put it all together? More than anything, I want them to figure it out on special teams, and I want them to play a full 4 quarters of football. We've seen the hot start in the first quarter. That's great. We've seen a couple second quarters now, both against Holy Cross and against UNLV, that have not been good. They couldn't put a drive together in the second quarter. Play a full football game. That is what I'm asking you.
Rachel?
Yeah, ideally, I'd like to not have to be in a situation again where I feel more comfortable with Kyle McCord throwing on 4th than them kicking the ball. So we'll hope that figures itself out. But I think Ashley nailed it. I think a complete game and seeing those pieces that you've seen work so well in the games that we have been closest to a complete game, that being Trevor Pena and all of those things, I'd say that's a pretty good analysis.
Prediction time. We'll still let you do the score, even though you can't change it.
All right, so this doesn't change my... So I think Syracuse is going to win this game.
You can say it.
And it doesn't change. It'll get a knock on my predictions. I think Syracuse is going to win, and I think they win this game by a touchdown. Honestly, I don't really think it's going to be like a nail-biter overtime game. What do I know? I think if I had to give a Syracuse prediction right now, I think they win 35-28.
I had a feeling you were. I thought you were going to say 34-27.
35-28.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. Yeah, I actually am going to use my switch on this one.
Good switch. Good
I said that they were going to lose. I'm going to go based off what I said about the momentum, and just knowing on both sides the upward momentum for Syracuse and sort of the downward momentum for NC State, and because of that. I do think this is going to be close. I do think it's going to be a nail-biter, but I don't think it's going to go into overtime. So I'll say closer, like 30-27.
Okay. Also worth pointing out before Rachel gives hers, I did see today that NC State is on fall break. So this is a primetime 8 o'clock game on Saturday night on ACC Network, but the students are not necessarily going to be there at NC State. Teams 3-3, they've been disappointing. We'll see what that atmosphere is like.
That's an interesting point you make, because that stadium is known to be very loud when it comes to ACC stadiums. I also said in our season prediction that SU would lose this game. I'm feeling very conflicted as to how to proceed right now, because part of me does think they win, but also the pride part of me doesn't want to follow suit and use my mulligan because Sam just did it. So I kind of feel like I want to stick with the idea that they might not win this game just for my pride's sake.
Listen, you can do whatever you want. I am free from the chains of James Mungro telling me that I'm copying him. I hope that you guys have all watched this podcast for long enough to know that now that he's not here, I'm gonna shit talk him for a little.
We love him very dearly.
I love him so much. Just watch. He actually does copy me every single week, and then acts like it's my fault somehow. I am getting gaslit.
And then it's you are getting gaslit.
Does anyone else see that?
It's to the point where
I am getting hurt.
Last week, you're like, you go first. He goes first, and then somehow you say yours, and he's like, you copied me. Mungro, you said it first. I'll say it first, and he'll be like, I knew you were gonna say that. I'm like, enough of this, all right? Enough. Anyway.
It is rather hostile.
But it never is hostile until predictions with me.
Until predictions, yeah.
He gets a little testy. So next time, we're all just going to let him go first.
Yeah,
and we're just going to see how that goes.
Next time, Mungro gets the floor for whatever he wants to say.
Yeah, Sam, you just got to open it by saying predictions, Mungro. Yes. Just keep it there, let him rock.
And then whatever he says, I say something totally different. Anyway, and does anyone have anything else to say at this point, or should we wrap it up?
I think I still need to say my prediction.
Oh yeah, that's true. Sorry.
Did you give a score?
I'm gonna go. Okay, I think I'm gonna stick with NC State winning this. No, I'm not. Syracuse is gonna win this game. I'm going back.
2 mulligans. So I'd like to point out that means everyone has burned their mulligan at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna go 33-26.
Burn their mulligan.
That was a score, 33-26. The mulligan's in flames.
Like, why is that? No one else has a mulligan.
Well, actually,
It's
Mungro
over.
does. Mungro does. It's over. We're so back.
Mungro has as many mulligans as he wants because he'll act like the rules are all wrong.
Yeah, Mungro makes the rules.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. As per usual, you can find us on YouTube. We have an Instagram rocking, a TikTok. I am pretty sure the handle is the same, but you can just look us up even on Google, the Orange Zone Podcast, and it will pop right up. Another quick time just to say, if you are interested in some Mets content, we also have another podcast that we started recently, and we're in the heart of playoffs, and you can find that at Why Mets Pod. So if you're interested in either of those, great. And if not, we will see you back here again next week with Mungro after hopefully a Syracuse win against NC State. Thanks for joining us.